Yo, let's go and welcome to the video. The Starsurge buff is now live on NA Realms. If you didn't hear the news yesterday, Starsurge's damage has been increased by 182%. The cooldown has also been reduced from 10 seconds down to 6, and the mana cost reduced from 3% down to 1%. Let's take a look at the damage and see how much of an increase that actually is. I don't have a tune on NA that's at level 25, so I'm still going to be a day behind on the reset until I get this boost. So my old value for Starsurge has the range of 57 to 70 arcane damage, 14 mana cost, and the 10-second cooldown. So that lower end of the range, 57, we can increase that by the 182%. And we've got a new value of 160.74, which is close. I've heard it's actually showing on the new tooltip that it's 162. Using the actual scaling formula that Blizzard has, might have had an extra little bit of a decimal on that 57 attached to it, but we should be getting 162 as a minimum Starsurge now with 0 spell power. And then the maximum range, take 70 and do the same thing, add 182% to it. We're now up to 197, and I've heard the tooltip on NA is saying 198. That's the maximum Starsurge that you'll see with 0 spell power. For the low end, we've added 105 damage, and the upper end, 128 damage. I've got a graph here that has the average base damage of each of our spells at level 25, with 0 spell power here in the base damage column. And then I've gone in 25 spell power increments up to the maximum of 150 spell power. So at about full best in slot with the new boon of Black Fathom, that's going to add another 25 spell power. This should be roughly the maximum average damage for each of our spells. You'll be able to hit higher than this. Starsurge, for example, has a plus or minus of 18. So anywhere from 312 to 348 is the range of our maximum Starsurge non-crit with 150 arcane power, spell power, however it's combined with the gear that you choose to go for. But as you can see, it starts off with 0 spell power being the best value GCD that we can use for damage. I've got a crit graph as well, so you can see just how insane the maximum Starsurge is going to be, and the range is going to be increased from plus or minus 18. So we'll be having 550 plus potential Starsurge crits in our full best in slot. And it's well above all the other spells as far as base crit, and it's going to be on a 6-second cooldown. We're going to be using this every single chance we can get, which means in a perfect world we can have a almost scripted rotation. We'll have Starsurge, our first GCD, followed by Sunfire, then Moonfire, throw in one Wrath. Starsurge will come off of cooldown. We can pop our second Starsurge, and then Sunfire, Moonfire is going to be on cooldown. Well, it's not going to be on cooldown. It's going to be on the target, ticking away. So then you fill with 3 Wraths to get your third Starsurge, and then you rinse and repeat. After that third Starsurge, you can have another Sunfire that will have taken 12 seconds, so it should be off, and then Moonfire, Wrath, rinse and repeat. You can start the fight with a Fairy Fire if you're keeping Fairy Fire up, and then I would say after every 3 rotations of the 12 seconds, that means it's going to be about 36 seconds worth of spells, then you can reapply your Fairy Fire if you're keeping that up. If you have to move it all during the fight, things could get out of sync, of course. No fight's perfect. The main thing is to remember your spell priority is Starsurge if it's off of cooldown, hit that. Sunfire if it's not up on the boss and it will fully expire before the end of the fight. Then Sunfire if Starsurge is on cooldown, Sunfire's on the boss, Moonfire's your next option for spells, and then you're using Wrath as a filler. There's already some logs up with people doing this exact rotation. So about 13 seconds into the fight, this Druid's name is Starfire. They pop their Starsurge, Sunfire, Moonfire, Wrath, Starsurge, Wrath, Starsurge, Sunfire, Moonfire. So like this section right here was exactly what I had imagined it would look like. My only question, which you might have as well, is does that Sunfire tick before the next one is reapplied, because that 12-second gap is pretty close. We can look right at the 14.471 mark that Sunfire hit the boss, and then 12 seconds later at 26 seconds into the fight, it ticked right before it reapplied, like within 0.1 seconds. You will get the value of that last tick of Sunfire right before you reapply it. The last thing to touch on really quick is the gear that I'm looking for this phase. I'll put a link to this in the description. I know I'm covering some of the loot. The thing I wanted to point out though was that I'm only going to go for one piece of arcane or nature gear, and that's going to be the cloak, because there's no real spell power option for the cloak. There's a few other slots where you could use a plus arcane or plus nature, especially early on before you actually have a spell power piece. That's going to be up to you. I'm just going to have my intellect gear, my stamina gear from pre-raid, and having that mana is really nice because some of the fights are still a bit long. And then the cloak, I could, if I really wanted to try to min-max a bit, switch out from an arcane cloak to a nature cloak because some of the bosses have extra nature or arcane resist. So in a blue post yesterday, some of the elemental resistances were lowered from the bosses in PFD. The main ones to look at is Lorgus Jet had their nature damage reduced from 75 down to 25, so they've still got some nature resist, meaning having some plus arcane gear for this fight might be the better choice. Twilight Lord Kelris had shadow and arcane resist lowered to 25 from 75, so for that fight maybe have your plus nature gear on. And the last one to worry about would be the corrosive droplets. They had nature resist that was lowered to 25 from 75. Our damage is pretty split between nature and arcane, so if you prio one school or the other, then it's going to hurt half of your spells. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about full sending on one way or the other. Personally, I'm just going to go for spell power, other than, like I said, my cloak. That's it for this one. I hope you guys are having a blast with these new changes to Starsurge and being able to pump in the raid, pump in some world PvP. I'm stoked for SoD. Let me know what you think about this change.